I'm one of the co-founders and CEO of Mission Ready. And at Mission Ready, we're really excited about launching people into new tech careers. And so it's also a place where we truly believe that tech careers need to be accessible to everyone. And our purpose is all about enabling more people. And in simple words, our mission is tech for all. And so helping people from different backgrounds thrive and do really well in this future of work. That's what our goal is. So today, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Today we have this fantastic topic lined up. At Mission Ready, what we're trying to do is to build momentum around the conversation around future of tech careers in the era of AI. And as part of this, today's specific topic is all that AI and still no ROI. So what does that truly mean? And we're really trying to explore that a bit. We're living in this moment of paradox, if I may say. So billions have been poured into AI over the past 18 months, and you look at all of those amazing valuations you've never heard of before happening in tech companies all over the world. There are enterprise subscriptions that are just multiplying, and it's just incredible to see. VCs are, venture capitalists are backing AI startups at record pace, and headlines about revolution, disruption, and even extinction is being played out. And yet in most boardrooms and breakout rooms, you would find these quieter questions being asked. Where's the real return? And that's what we're really going to explore today, and more in this chat with our panelists today. So let's quickly introduce our amazing two members who are joining us today. I've got here Steve. Thank you for joining us, Steve. Steve is the GM of Tech and Operations at Woolworths. He's very well known in the space for his work in the tech space, but more importantly with humans, with people, and the impact he's had in their lives. And I've often heard how passionate he is about solving real world problems, and that's what I absolutely love about him. And you will hear more about Steve in a little bit, and I'll let him introduce himself. But we're absolutely privileged to have somebody who is a top technology leader who's ranked number 6 in the 2023 CIO 50 list joining us today. So thank you, Steve. But if you want to do a quick intro before I introduce Brett, that'll be amazing.
Sure. Yeah, thank you for having me tonight. So I have been in the industry a very long time. I'm not a spring chicken, you can tell from the grey and the lack of hair. So yeah, have been in various roles in the tech industry and led the tech function at some really cool New Zealand brands, currently at Woolworths. Yeah, as Dinah said, I am often looking for the meaning behind the tech we're delivering, and I'm probably more about the value that's been driven out of that tech rather than the tech itself. Having said that, I am a passionate technologist in my own time, bit of a casual gamer, and I'm often found with my Legion Go at night playing games to sort of, relax after a busy day.
Oh, amazing. So you don't need a book to relax. Games do it.
Yeah, bit of escapism. It's still escapism, yeah.
Awesome. And we also have with us today Brett Roberts. I've known Brett for years now. He's been instrumental in our journey at Mission Ready, one of the visionaries I've met in my time. He's a challenger in many ways, but he's very down to earth and such an amazing human being. He sits on our board and constantly challenges us as well to do better. So having said that, Brett has such amazing experience in the tech sector as well, similar to Steve, in different roles. He's been part of the leadership team at Microsoft, Datacom, Callahan Innovation, and I will stop talking because there's again, just like Steve, there's so much we could talk about these two legends. So Brett, maybe a quick intro from you.
I think you just about covered it all, but I'll keep turning up to these webinars if you keep singing my praises like that. This is fantastic. Yeah, my background actually my trade is I'm an avionics engineer, so woefully underqualified to talk about any of this stuff. But I've been in the tech sector for since the 90s. Spent quite a bit of time at Microsoft, fair bit of time at Datacom, ran a digital agency in Tauranga, a couple of stints at Callaghan Innovation. And these days, I'm the managing director of a manufacturing company that I co-own based in East Tamaki, which is where I'm beaming to you live from today. So it was interesting, Steve, what you were saying. From a technology perspective, I would probably be dangerous if I got my hands on some of the tech today. But I come at things from a value perspective. Value is the drum that I bang on a regular basis. It's one of those, you keep saying that word, but I don't think you know what it means, words. And one of the reasons I find the whole area of AI so fascinating, because I think there's quite the struggle to find that value. So when you propose this webinar, I was very keen to participate. I think it will be an interesting conversation. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Brett. I bet there's going to be some interesting conversations today. We've got some interesting questions as well to make it all the more value add. So I guess today I want to set the scene before we start the panel discussion. So AI adoption is rising, and the value, but the value isn't really guaranteed. And we're kind of seeing this tipping point right now, right? There's a lot of conversation that over 50% of new code is AI generated now. And McKinsey reports that over 70% of businesses have adopted at least one generative AI tool. And here in New Zealand, government and industry are definitely experimenting cautiously, optimistically, but the reality is ROI is lagging. And according to one of the recent BCG studies, only 11% of organizations using Gen AI reported significant financial impact, but the rest, they're still stuck in experimentation, strategy paralysis, or perhaps poor change management. And it'll be interesting to hear from both Brett and Steve around this. But also we talk about AI and the talent gap in the space. And that's not just technical. We've all heard, and in the past webinars we've talked about, routine tasks can get automated. We are looking at a different type of collaboration with AI and humans in the loop. But it turns out the gap isn't just about tools. So it's about talent as well. And not just technical expertise, but the right mix of AI fluency, understanding what AI can and can't do. And before I continue, Annie, perhaps the speaker's on. Do you want to mute yourself?
Might pay to mute everybody and then unmute a few.
All right, apologies. Yes, so we're just talking about the talent gap isn't just technical. So we're talking about AI fluency. Yes, we do need to understand what AI can and can't do. There is human judgment, which is the second most important thing around ethics, strategy, context. We're also looking at a third element, which is change resilience. And we've heard in the past from some of our partners around the ability to unlearn, relearn, and work in new ways. And Brett, we were just having that chat earlier around how fast this technology is changing and how fast we should learn, unlearn, and continue with that. And at Mission Ready, we're really seeing this play out in real time. So we've trained hundreds of career changers, people who thought of themselves as tech people, and watched them step confidently into AI-powered roles as UX designers, analysts, and full stack developers. And what we've learned is this, that it's not AI replacing humans at the moment. It's humans who can work with AI replacing those who can't. And again, we'll work through this conversation when we jump into that chat. There are new talent models erupting right now, having had this conversation. So we'd like to explore that a bit more around how is the workplace really changing. We are seeing signs of agentic AI being adopted, AI tools that not only assist, but act semi-independently. And what does that mean in the next 5 years? Your team may include not just software, but an AI teammate. Is that really coming up? But here's the rub. Only a minority of developers are ready at the moment. 52% still don't use agents, and 38% say they have no plans to. So what's really holding us back? Is it skills, our mindset, and in many ways, is it a lack of inclusive pathways to upskill? And we talked about this future of teams, and agentic AI is coming. So how do we prepare for that? What's the new agenda for talent, right? So if you want ROI from AI, we do need to shift how we think about talent. And as employers, the question, Steve, this is probably coming your way, is are we shifting from degrees to capability in the way we are hiring? From experience to adaptability and a combination of that, from exclusion to inclusion. And because the people best positioned to drive AI might not be the ones already in tech, they might be career changers, moms returning to work, young people who don't see themselves in university lectures, but those who thrive in hands-on, purpose-led environments. How are employers making that shift or powering? At Mission Ready, we are doubling down on our AI-powered careers through our diplomas, micro-credentials, real-world experience, which opens doors with our 300+ partners. Because truly what underlying all of this, what we believe is that talent is evenly distributed, but opportunity is not. So how do we build that opportunity? How do we provide the platform? And so on that note, tonight we will be discussing not just about where AI is going, it's also about what kind of workforce we need to help us get there. We'll explore why AI adoption may stall in certain organizations where value is not realized. But we'll also explore how we can accelerate AI adoption and new ways of working that would be emerging. And ultimately, also as learners and leaders alike, how can we evolve to meet this moment? Because AI won't build the future, people will. And that's really what I'm excited about. And I'm hoping to have that conversation today. So let's welcome Steve and Brett. So Steve, you're at the forefront of this. You'll be able to bring those insights from the front lines of retail innovation. And Brett, I know as a tech innovator yourself, and you've seen these cycles before, so I'd love to hear where that's going. So let's start with the first question. Start with the reality check. Where are we really seeing AI ROI, and is it still more promise than payoff? I'll stop sharing my screen. Steve, shall we kick off with you?
Sure. Sorry. And Brett, let me give you permission to disagree with me right up front. I hope we have some disagreement, because that's where
that'd be great.
That's where the interesting conversation happens.
Yeah.
ROI on AI. Look, when we often have conversations about AI, from my perspective, I am hearing echoes of what I heard numerous times, but let's say when cloud came along. So, someone says, we've got a problem we need to solve. Don't worry, cloud's the solution. What? Cloud's the solution? What do you mean? Oh, well, cloud's going to take care of it all. We don't need to worry about all those old disciplines and things like that. And so when we ask that question, are we getting ROI from AI? Yes and no. I mean, for people who approach problems with what I heard recently called the timeless tools to solve problems, which is really good definition of the problem you're trying to solve, really good definition of what you're going to measure to see if this is successful. And if you approach it with that problem solving mentality, yes, people see good results. But when people throw, I'm all for experimentation, 100%. I'm all for putting the tools in the hands as many people as possible. However, when corporations or for-profit companies are trying to get this ROI happening, they need to learn to approach these in the same way. AI or large language models or whatever you're going to call it are not this silver bullet to just go, if we throw AI at this problem, we will definitely get the outcome we're thinking. Absolutely not. Because if you haven't used the disciplines, you won't see that. Now, the last thing I'll say on that is I do believe with some of these new tools, because they are so capable at some things, is that some of the ways that I used to solve problems or some of the ways that I would approach things outdated. I need to unlearn some things. And, it's people like Brett who are probably more at that front edge of innovation, where if I partner with someone like him, my corporate brain goes, oh, I'll solve the problem this way. And Brett might go, actually, let's turn that on its head. We don't need to do that anymore. We can do it in a different way. We still need to problem solve, still need to measure.
I have bad news, Steve. I don't think we're going to have any disagreement.
Oh, rats.
You raised some interesting points. So a few things in there. I do a bit of public speaking, and one of the things I talk about often is the half-life of knowledge. And if and the joke I make is, some knowledge lasts a long time. When I was in high school, I learned where Spain is, and it's only moved a couple of centimeters. I can still find it. But in the technology world, if you go and take a 6-month sabbatical and come back, you need to relearn everything. And I literally know folks, colleagues at Microsoft who've been through that. So I think we are in a world where anything, and this particularly around AI, I think folks out there that are learning, doing their best to learn about these tools now, a lot of what they're learning will be discarded over time and quite quickly, within months, not many years. So I think that's something to be aware of. If going deep, a lot of what you learn is likely to not be of value further down the track. I spent 13 years at Microsoft, and I have been responsible for and the spokesperson for a few hype cycles in my time. I've never seen a hype cycle as spectacular as the AI hype cycle. And there's some very good reasons for that. And one of them is, Diana, you talked right at the beginning about the investments being made. You talked about billions. And in fact, they're probably, within the next year or two, they will clock over to $1 trillion worth of investment. Very, very fast moving. It's technology that ages very, very quickly. And so the main vendors are, and I think the word's not unfair, I think they are desperate to see a return on their investment soon. I saw an interesting statistic the other day that talking about OpenAI, that for OpenAI to break even currently, if everybody that was if they had subscribers paying the same as they pay for a monthly Netflix subscription, they need to have 3.3 billion subscribers to break even. So, and anyone that follows me on Twitter will probably, LinkedIn, I post a fair bit of stuff around the craziness of AI business models. So there's this massive push from the vendors for adoption. They just want, please take our product, please try our product, and please buy our product. I think, Steve, I can well imagine in your organization, and I think that sentiment is received by many organizations, or causes that whole FOMO thing, fear of missing out. Oh my gosh, and then we've got all of our competitors are doing this. I'm sure they're way ahead of us, and all of that's fueled by reports from McKinsey and BCG and all the other Accenture and all the other players. And I think it's important that large and small businesses take stock and don't get pushed into doing things that don't have specific value. And Steve, you made the point about experimentation, and I think there's a really key part of this, which is I think the scientific method applies here, right? So come up with an idea somewhere where this could potentially add some value, come up with a hypothesis and test that hypothesis and then learn from that. People talk about failing fast, and I've never liked that particular phrase. I think the idea of learning fast is a good thing, but have a thing that you're there to test, so that when someone says to you, why are we doing this with AI? You can say, well, actually, this might speed this up, make it easier, make it more reliable, reduce, the reliance on headcount, whatever it might be, but you've got a hypothesis behind it. And I think unless you have that right now, when it comes to a technology that is growing faster, moving faster, and getting more complex than anything I've ever seen ever, you are absolutely going to go off track. There's no doubt about it.
That's a great point, Brad, around learning fast. And that probably leads really well into the next question I had for Steve, because let's bring it into the real practical application of that scenario, right? Because you are doing it real time in your organization, where you're having to test what works, what doesn't work. And, if something does get stuck, how do you really unlock the value of that new innovation coming in your space? But is there any case studies or anything you could share with us?
Yeah, look, they're probably not going to be groundbreaking stuff. So our organization is a large corporate, and we will often fast follow if we see something working elsewhere. Where we've seen great uptake and actual benefits, where we either say we're doing more with less, or we're getting higher quality for lower investments, is in customer care, our contact centers, where we're not replacing, at this stage, we're not replacing humans with an agent you talk to. but that's, that's somewhere in the future that'll be happening for us. But we are able to determine things like the sentiment of a call. We can guide agents to the right action very quickly because there's often a repeatable process, and that is taking out, like, it's not very sexy, I get that, but it's taking out a whole lot of this wasted brain power, which was really just, oh, what do I do now? Do I click here? Do I go here? Do I go here? Which can lead to a couple of things. I would call it wasted brain power for the person on the phone, because I would much rather they pump that brain power into having an engaging conversation with someone who has a pain point that needs resolution. I don't want them spending time going, hang on, my computer's doing it. Yeah, oh, sorry, I went to the wrong place. Yeah. So being able to do that is actually making their role a lot more satisfying for them. Because when someone's working in a role like that, what they take great pride in is that someone goes, man, I had an interaction with Brett on the phone and I started out angry and I came away happy. That is every customer care person's dream, right? So if we can lift some of that repetitive work, again, not sexy, but it might save 30 seconds on 1,000 calls. So for us, there's optimization of, our workforce, great. But also it just means that person has a lot more enriching day, and they can say, I value my work a lot more. And that's really important for me, because yes, Woolworths is a for-profit company, okay, but actually what we do is we put food on the table of people that want to feed their families or themselves, right? So if we can lift off that work, which is just busy work, and actually allow people to engage in that process of getting food to the table, we have more engaged employees. Ultimately, it's not that we're taking their jobs away. And so I see a lot of instances like that. Rather than me waffle
that
on,
makes
I'll
complete
take a pause
sense,
there.
Steve. Like, even from a talent perspective, none of us, in those roles really want to be doing those repetitive tasks that are just, nonstop, just admin stuff that takes up a lot of the time away from the value that I could be adding as a person. And now as a talent, I get to showcase more of the value I can bring to the business, which is quite a good space to move towards. And I love that your organization's already started to build in those or remove those inefficiencies so that people can be authentically providing better experience. So Brett, if we kind of came to you around the fact that yes, there are all these innovations happening, there is and AI can nudge us forward, but when it comes to that adoption side of things, is it a tech stack problem, or is it truly a talent model problem that would stop us from being faster at adopting these kind of tools and technology?
Yes.
Yes.
Look, I think it's both. There's a couple of challenges here. Steve, you made such really good points there. If I can just backtrack a little bit on something you said. I think one of the greatest areas of value I can see is in those kind of call center environments where there is 80% of the questions that they get are the same every single day. It's drudgery. You build some sort of AI system to uplift that and do a good job of it, and we're either there or very close to it, and let those humans that understand all of those problems and how your organization works step up into answering the more gnarly problems. They'll have better jobs and enjoy it, and you'll provide better customer service. And I actually think that is the perfect synergy on both sides, right? So that to me is just such an obvious area, right? So going back to what I was rambling about before, I think there's a few problems. So one is the technology is just shambolic at the moment. There's a myriad of vendors. Everything's the latest thing or the best thing since sliced bread. And you see people adopting these things and dropping these things. I literally saw a graphic this morning showing how in the United States, a recent survey of companies of over 250 people, and there is a massive decline in the number of people in those organizations using AI tools. They've gone up this big, slope going up, and now they've kind of gone, so there's a disillusionment. They're probably in the trough of disillusionment in that hype cycle. There's probably a bit of that going on. So the technology is all over the place. It is very, very hard to work out which technology to choose and where to apply it in your business. And by the time you make that decision, the whole rug's been pulled and everything's moved. And right, so the technology part's hard. And then I think the talent side of things, you've got people that are in their day jobs doing their thing. They're not necessarily technologists per se. They understand their business, part of the business intimately, expecting those folks to then jump on board and pick up some AI tools and understand what they're trying to do, understand how to use those tools without the necessary training, without the necessary headspace. It's very hard to be innovative, clever, and problem-solving when you're also doing your day job. So I think organizations need to think about how they create space for people to do this experimentation and try these things. I think the best folks to be doing this are the folks at the coalface, the folks that are in the business and understand the business. But, the analogy I use a lot is how many people know how to use a pivot table? One of the most powerful things in a spreadsheet. Once you figure out how to use them, they're life-changing, but most people don't know how to use them. Why? They haven't been trained. They're not sure how to apply them. They're not sure where the data is or if the data is good. So I think it is both of those. It's both a technology problem challenge, and I think it is also a people challenge as well.
Yeah.
Can I, Diana, do you mind if I pick up something on that? So I'm going to kind of ask Brett a question because it's something that I grapple with and I haven't quite got to the answer myself yet. So one of the things as these new tools come into play and you can have someone pick up a tool and have some of the knowledge that I have learned, they already have it at their fingertips, or you've got someone at the cold face who's got a great understanding of what they do in their role and are probably a really good problem solver for that role. I start asking questions like, why are our companies structured in like a military organization? Why is there a great mighty leader at the top? And I start questioning how we have meetings and things like that. Why does an exec meeting half the time is people is asking questions because they haven't read any of the content? Well, we've now got tools that can actually summarize all it. So I'm starting to go, what is the ideal shape of a not born in the cloud, born in AI business? I don't know. Is there a way, is there something we're not seeing about shaping our businesses or our teams because we're so entrenched in the way that, 30 years I've been in businesses that have been structured a certain way, my brain clicks in a certain way. My question to you is kind of, are you seeing in the work that you're doing that, yes, we need to be reshaping the way we structure our companies and things like that?
But so I think the answer to that is yes, but there's a bunch of layers underneath that, right? So one is we, humanity, are deeply wedded to these models, right? Yeah. And when you think about it, a great example of that is, we talk about value, we talk about innovation, but we've still got this mindset that's kind of the 40-hour work week thing. I'm here to do 40 hours of labor. If someone rocked on in and did their job in an hour brilliantly and left and, took the other 39 hours off, everyone would go, well, someone's losing here. Someone's being screwed over. It's like, no, they're not. The value's being delivered, because time's precious. So it's deeply entrenched, and it will take, and that 40-hour work week mindset comes from the Industrial Revolution, over 100 years ago. It's built into us. So it will take us a long time to shuck that off, and it will take some brave people to be willing to attempt to do so. One of the other things is I think we can all be honest with ourselves and say a lot of what we do in day-to-day running of particularly larger organizations, they call it busy work, but it's those meetings and calls and conference calls and Teams meetings and filling in reports and all the other stuff. In a perfect world where AI systems can start picking those things up, and actually a great example is gathering a whole bunch of data and producing a report that someone might take normally a week, once a month to do for the leadership team. If that can be done by AI, the initial reaction would be a bunch of people sitting around twiddling their thumbs, which isn't a good look, and no one wants to be that person. So there is because we're so wedded to being busy, so busy, that anytime you go, I actually had a very cruisy week because AI is doing all of this here, and I'm just coordinating it, and I'm sort of the orchestra conductor now, and I'm just pointing at all the musicians and telling them what to do. Yeah. There will always be someone that'll go, oh, it sounds like you've got a cushy job. Well, maybe we could pay this person less, right? So I think, we're bringing our Paleolithic emotion and mindset to a modern world, and that's going to be part of the challenge. And I think it will take some, what's the word I'm looking for? Some forward-looking leadership to be willing to change some of those things. I think over time we'll probably see flatter organizations and distributed, all of those things that people write books about. But I think the reality is, and let's be frank, the folks at the top of most organizations have grown up through those industries. They've been in them for 30 and 40 years. They bring those mindsets with them, which is why, again, this unlearning, this half-life of knowledge, this willingness to go, actually, I brought all this baggage with me that I need to shuck off, and here's a new world. I think that's absolutely critical. And some people are good at that, Steve, I think. And I'll argue that probably the majority aren't. You know, it's hard. It's hard to change behaviors and mindsets. You have a visceral reaction to things, right?
Yeah.
Thank you. Leads really well into that next segment that I had around future skills and mindsets. And Steve, I've heard some really cool things happening within your organization around this space, around supporting learners, supporting your teams with getting access to learning that allows them to upskill in this space, which allows them to experiment. But I'd love to understand from your perspective, what is Woolies doing in this space?
Yeah, look, I think if I'm 100% honest, that you're going to have mixed results depending on who you speak to. I think where we're doing well, we have leaders in place who are seeking candidates for their roles. And sorry, there's some noise in the background. I'm not sure if that's coming through. They're seeking candidates who have a new set of skills. So we have people in our teams. We might traditionally go, do you have a computer degree? Do you have this? Do you have that? I'm one of those guys that, because I don't have any of those things. I never went to university. I'm very enamored by people with MBAs, so I can sometimes be a sucker for someone who's got an MBA, and I go, oh, better hire that person. But what we're finding in the more successful teams where we're building these teams of people who are curious, who are constant life learners, they may not have all the skills that I want. And the challenge for me and my leaders, who will be bold enough to bring someone into a team who's not a senior developer or who is not a senior this, senior that, and will go, actually, this person has the perfect mindset. They're curious, they're motivated, they've done some self-learning. Am I brave enough to go, do you know what, we're not going to hire this person who has come from all these huge companies and they're very experienced, but I'm going to bring in someone who's got this slightly different mindset from the rest of my team because I want someone who's curious. Now, that's one of the things, bringing in the right people who have that mindset. The second thing of how we're approaching it in Woolies, particularly if we focus on AI, for example, and specifically large language models, I want to be clear on that one. The way we approached it was we set up a governance framework that said we want to provide access to as many people as who would like to use Gemini as the tool of choice in our business. A safe environment, which is, the information we put in there doesn't go out and train the AI, it doesn't go out into the public. We want to get it into the hands of as many people as would like to experiment. But here's the framework, which things are safe. Here's the framework where it's not safe. So very clear on those governance rules. So then we were able to say, everyone who is interested, start experimenting. Now, that does not mean we are throwing millions of dollars at all those hundreds of ideas that people have. We then have a way of allowing people to surface those ideas in like an idea canvas, and we Dragon's Den those ideas, and those ideas can come from anywhere. So anyone who has a Google account and access to Gemini and goes, oh, I think I've found a way that can do X, Y, Z, they can bring that idea forward. We can Dragon's Den it and then decide, do we want to seed that with some money to take it further? Now, if that person needs support because they've got the great idea, but they're not really too sure that they need to train a Vertex and all these different tools in the background to do things, then we supply them with a buddy who has experience. We add them to forums where people go, I'm stuck with this idea, I need some help. We connect them with the right people in organizations who have skills. So then we're reusing capability that we have. Yes, unfortunately, it is people who have day jobs, but it's people who are showing an interest. But we're connecting that with people who don't have those skills. They can pick up those skills along the way. And then sometimes if those ideas really bear fruit, we form those people into teams and they deliver that idea, we give it back to the enterprise. So that's the way we're trying to support. It's not perfect. Like what I described sounds amazing and utopia. It's not really like that. There's some clunky things along the way. How do I get access to this thing? And I don't know how to set this up. And I've been passed around 10 different parts of the service desk. That stuff still happens. But we're seeking to document these processes as we go and go, where can we optimize these processes and maybe automate them so that once someone has an idea, getting past that dragon's den, getting it seeded, getting the right team together becomes a lot shorter cycle.
It's like leadership needs to experiment just as much as anyone else, right? To figure out the right talent model, the business model that's going to help accelerate some of this adoption.
That's probably I'll just one little comment on that. We discovered, and I think it should have been self-evident, but I'm sad to say it wasn't, is that we unleashed these tools into our organization. We had huge uptake, and yes, then it sort of tapered off a little bit, but we have a substantial amount of people who are using the Gemini LLM every day, and yet some of our executive team just had no idea what these tools were about. They hadn't used them themselves. So then we went, problem. They don't know how to support some of these initiatives because they're just getting lost in the, a little bit of the noise of all the acronyms and things like that. So we've done some sessions with our executives to just show them what's possible, to sort of decipher some of the terms they hear. And that's actually opened up them to be a lot more open to some of the ideas coming through, because it is very challenging. If one of your junior team members has the best idea and basically gets it across the line and you don't quite understand what's going on, you have to have a certain type of leader who's quite open, but also I think they need a broad understanding of what we're talking about when someone like me rolls in and says, AI this, AI that, LLM this, so that's been a big learning for us.
Right. So here we are, the workplace is definitely changing, and, there are different tools being adopted and so on. And at the same time, we have new talent, people from, her career changes, moms returning to work, graduates for that matter, coming into the workforce. What's the mindset and the approach they need to bring so that they can actually thrive in this space? How do they slot in a way that actually works for organizations? Thoughts?
I'll let Brett.
Yeah. So that's a great question, right? Steve, you touched on something before, which I think is so critical to this. I think that constant curiosity thing is really important. There's a great, I don't know if it's true, but it's a great Bill Gates quote talking about how he likes to hire lazy people because they find efficiencies and better ways to do things. And I think that's that curiosity thing. This could be done better. Why do we do this? Those sorts of folks. And I'll give you a good example just quickly. While I was at Datacom, they did a really interesting thing. They hired 5 quite senior people in who had never worked in the technology sector before. They weren't technologists, but they were very, very good at what they did. In fact, one of the people, for example, her previous job had been pulling multi-billion-dollar roading and railway infrastructure projects back on track for the New South Wales transportation folks, right? Nothing to do with technology. But what they brought was these completely different worldviews and ways of thinking about things. They were all curious problem solvers. And it was fascinating working with them because the reality was the technology didn't matter so much. It was, they had this way of, particularly when it came to how our interactions with customers were quite interesting. They had a very different view of, what Datacom was doing, the value we were delivering. I learned a lot from these folks over the time I was there. One of the challenges with that, of course, is that you have to be aware of the organ rejection thing of bringing in these very different people into an organization that operates in a certain way, and that the organization doesn't accidentally, unwittingly, unthinkingly kind of push them out. You don't want them to assimilate. You want them to be these people that they are, and people to see that change and learn that change from those people. So that's one of the first things, and I can't remember where I was going with the rest of it, but I think you just touched on such an important point there. I think that, the other thing was, and again, Steve, you touched on this, the importance of communication skills, I think, are critical here, right? So if you've got a great idea, you can see a way of using some magical tool to solve some, intractable problem. The importance of being able to package that up and kind of pitch what the problem is, pitch what the solution might be, what success might look like, what you need to go and try and do this, are really important skills. And I think that's something I think more and more over time. Obviously, we'll be training folks in AI skills, but I think we need to be training people in those sorts of skills as well. How do you get these points across rather than the old school of, I'll bump it to my manager, who'll bump it to their manager, who'll bump it to theirs. And by the time it gets to the person who writes the checks, it's all boring and being vanillaized and nothing will happen anyway, right? So I think that ability to be able to talk to someone 3 or 4 levels up and excite them about something and get them engaged, I think is critical as well. So those are human skills, right? Those are soft skills, but I think that's really critical.
Awesome.
Yeah, look, I agree. One of the things we talk about in my team here, don't talk about widgets, talk about value. It sounds a bit trite, but no one, certainly at a senior level, or no, that's not fair. No one who cares about the outcomes in our business really cares that I built a server and it's been up for 5 nines. What they care about is what was the impact of that. So what we talk about in our team a lot, and this is the advice I give to people who are looking to build their careers, is learn the business that you're working in, learn why you exist, learn the things that are valuable to the people who buy your products. You might go, okay, well, people want cheap groceries. Okay, cool. How does the work that I do contribute to cheaper groceries or fresher groceries, or being able to get groceries out to a rural place? Once you understand your part in that, so really deeply understand, be curious about what happens when something comes into our team, heads out that way, goes up to the merchandising team, then you can start really adding value because you start seeing the connective tissue between things. The tools matter a little bit less. Although I would say I'm seeing with some of the new tools that are coming out, they are so capable that actually some of those tools can make a substantial difference. But again, without that understanding of where you sit in your organization, and for people who are coming into an organization, spend time understanding what your organization really does. What are the value levers, the value chains across your organization? Because you become so much more valuable if you can sit with someone who works out in some part of the business and go, yeah, I hear what you're saying. So you're trying to do A, B, C, D and get to Y? Yeah, we are. Now I understand that. I think the solution that we wanted to do for you actually isn't right. I actually think there's another way to solve that. Those people are super, super valued and they're curious. They're curious about how things work. They're curious about the meaning behind what they're doing. And when you get people like that, they're just the best people to have in the team, because if we don't have meaning in what we're doing, it all becomes a bit drudgery and 9 to 5. And the people who are curious and passionate and looking for meaning, they're the people that stay around. They're the people that do great things. Actually, they probably don't stay around. They probably deliver something amazing and then shoot off and do something else amazing somewhere else. And that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. Just on that, you raised an interesting point. While I was at Callaghan, I worked with a lot of early stage, high growth tech companies, right? And it was always very hard getting in and working with those companies. You get snippets of information. You don't spend hours and hours and hours working with them. But it never ceased to amaze me how often you could sit down with teams building great things, doing cool stuff. And I would ask a stupid question, be like, why do you do that? And you get everyone in the room going, well, because blah. And then they'd kind of go, well, why do we do that? And it's amazing how much stuff is ingrained behavior. So that, again, bringing in those fresh eyes at times, curious folks that ask why, that it's, I guess it's a challenger mindset, but it's just that whole thing of, sometimes the thing that you've been doing that looks so incredibly efficient, and this is how we do things here, particularly with some of these tools that are coming out now, there's brand new ways of completely rethinking how you do things, or whether you should do them at all. And sometimes what you need is this fresh DNA coming in, asking those, those people have to be willing to look like an idiot occasionally, right? It's kind of like we do these things because, we have to by law or whatever it might be. But you want those people that come in and just get people having to rethink, well, this is, why do we do that? I think it's a valuable thing. And you team that up with some of these tools, and I just think magic can happen from there.
Yeah, and I was thinking about, Diana, what you said earlier. So how do people who are maybe have taken a career break or are coming back into the workforce? It does take a certain type of leader, and I genuinely hope I'm one of those who is willing to build a diverse thinking team. So I don't know if you know this, but I'm the stereotype. I'm a middle-aged white male in technology, right? And I've had to, over time, thanks to my wife, who's a fiery woman of color, had to unlearn some things because I have a tendency to hire myself again and again. And that's not a good thing. I can tell you that now. But it is also risky to bring in diverse thinking, not in a risk as a bad thing, but you have to be willing to accept what comes with that. And if you can build a diverse team, you might have people who report to you organizationally going, I think you're completely wrong, Steve. And then you have to go, okay, tell me more, rather than, well, I'm the boss, so frankly, not interested. And it's something as leaders in our organization, now that I'm in a senior role, my responsibility is to kick that door down for people who are wanting to break in. And I remember what it was like, you looking at our organization going, how do all these people know each other? And they've just, they've been at all these different companies. And breaking into that is hard. And our responsibility as senior leaders is to make that easier. But it's a challenge every day to go, am I going to take this person or this person? Make sure you're bringing in the right skills that you need, but be willing to take a bet on someone and go, actually, I'm going to give this person a shot and support them with the right support to get to them, because they, like I said, they're curious, they're passionate, they've shown some self-learning. I think that's a key challenge not for job seekers, but for the people who are running our organizations now.
And just to double down on that, I think the critical thing in what you're saying there is it's so important for leaders today to leave their ego at home, to be humble, to accept differing opinions, to be challenged on theirs, be able to have those conversations in a mature kind of way. And I think the minute you leave your ego behind and you can have those conversations, and everything changes, right? You're not defending anything, and also I think people start to see you as, it's a team. It's not like a pyramid. It's kind of like we're all in this together. I think that, again, that's where some of the magic really comes from, and that's that's a bit more new school. There's a lot of old school folks out there that don't kind of think and act in that way, and I think they'll be challenged with that sort of thing, right? Which is why you get those organizations where they hire clones of themselves, right? There's lots of those companies.
Totally. I think the ego thing's important for a bit of theatrics. I wear this around. I'm going to show you something. I hope it doesn't offend anyone. I wear this on my ID card, and because I think it's
you see it.
because it's the ego thing, and I have to remind myself, and I can read card someone in a meeting, because that doesn't help anyone, right? Approaching something with humility. It doesn't mean you have to give in or be a softie or anything like that, but it just means be prepared to be wrong. Be prepared to accept someone else's opinion. Again, even for myself, being curious is a big skill, because I'm just not always right. As tough as that is for some people to admit, we're not always right, no matter how senior you are.
Yeah. And you open the door and allow people to be themselves when you do that. So a lot of respect for this conversation that we've just had, because that's a core essence of what's required in today's world as an inclusive leadership model. And I loved hearing that from both of you. And I do want to, I know I'm conscious of time, and I really want to get one big thing out of both of you, which is one practical advice for new talent career changes looking to enter the tech sector in this AI era. If you had to give one practical advice to them, what would it be?
It's a tough one. We both look off screen.
I'm looking up to the right. What does that mean?
Yeah, that's right.
I think being willing to accept change. I think that's a really key part of it, right? The company that you join on day one is not going to be the same company 2 years down the track. That the rate of change is increasing, and the degree of change is increasing, and so that no one's going to jump into 40-year careers. No one's going to jump into 4-year careers anymore. Things touched on that before. So you get some people that are just going to flip between things. So I think being willing to accept change and just understand that is normal, I think is critical. I think having an appetite for learning, which is just 1 degree away from that constant curiosity thing, but being willing to learn, is a critical part of it. And I think because I think that all of this change, this technological change, this kind of cultural change within organizations, this stuff that's going on in world economies, a whole lot of other things, is going to cause friction. And I think being able to deal with, not always knowing everything, not always being able to predict the future, not being able to see, who does 5-year business plans anymore? Maybe Woolworths do, I'm not sure, but it's one of the, how, we live in, everything's just moving so quickly. So predictability is a far more scarce commodity than it used to be. So I think being willing to be the cork bobbing on the ocean, I think is a critical thing, right? Dealing with that change and being good at working with other people, because I think team dynamics and teams will change much more quickly than they used to. I think there will be much more constant state of flux in organizations as people try and figure this stuff out. So if you can kind of go with the flow and bring your curiosity and your personable, nature and all those sorts of things, I think that's absolutely critical. And then I think that when it comes to the AI side of things, being interested, understanding enough about the business and figuring out the tools that could help you and thinking about them as amplifiers or enhancers of what you do, not replaces what you do. Some of these things are going to replace the more, repetitive roles. There's no doubt about that. But I think finding ways in which you can enhance what you're doing is going to be an absolutely critical part of it. Thinking about it as an aid, a sidekick, is, the mindset to bring to it.
Yes, perfect. And Steve?
Yeah, I haven't got one either. I think I've got 3. I think that again, me and Brett are going to furiously agree with each other. Adaptability, I think, is a key one. So, anyone, whenever I hear huge red flag, that's not in my job description. Like, so adaptability to change. Things are changing rapidly. I think they will change. They will continue to accelerate and be volatile and uncertain. All those things, which I'm struggling with too. I'm not saying we're all got it sorted. Like what I knew yesterday is not necessarily what I'm going to know tomorrow. I think being interested enough in the things that you think are important. So if we say AI and large language models or technology is the thing that you're interested in, it's very easy to have a reasonably thin slice, broad understanding of what's going on in the industry. And the easiest way for me is podcasts, picking up some really good broad strokes podcasts. So, for years I've listened to one called the Daily Tech News Show, 30 minutes, just here's the topics of the day. Their thing is to give you a broad enough understanding that you're the smartest person in the room in a conversation over a barbecue, right? And like really helpful to me, even as a technologist, because I can't stay across everything. And I think, have a go with some things. I'm challenging myself on that. I initially probably failed a little bit by going a little too deep on some of the new stuff that was coming out, and then very quickly realized it was overwhelming. I couldn't keep up, and I didn't have the brain power to try and understand what every tool was good at. So partnered with that broad strokes sort of understanding from something like a podcast and listen to it regularly, get yourself into a habit. And then if you hear something that interests you, have a crack at it and then learn some of the issues with working with one of those tools, and then back away again if it and then start listening. It's almost is it like futurist thinking, looking for the threads, finding the threads that are listening to the signals, and then finding one and just giving it a tug and going, yep, I'm gonna dive down on that one. And then if it doesn't, you sort of go, okay, that's enough now, I'm going to just listen to the signals again. I think is a really important thing for people coming in. The last thing would be, don't give away your personality to AI. So, writing your letters, your CVs, your interviews, I'm already starting to identify something that I think I've heard before because it got spat out of something. And that's sad. I mean, I use AI to help with my writing because, like my talking, I'm a waffler writer. I just go, and people go, he didn't quite get what you said. So, summarizing stuff down with a tool is quite good for me, but I always then put my voice back into it because I want it to be from me. I just need some help with my editing skills. But when you're in an interview or when you're submitting a cover letter or CV, that, the commodity of the future, I heard someone else say this, Neville Pinto, is original human thought. And so don't just give that away because you think myself or Brett want to hear the textbook answer. Put it out there, just be willing to take a risk and go, well, actually, I know people might say this, but this is what I truly think because of these reasons. Shows me that you've really thought about something. You're willing to act on your values and give an opinion that might be counter to what I think. Those things are really important signals to me when I'm interviewing people. And if I feel I'm getting too much of the rote answers, I really get turned off quite quickly, even if that person's a good candidate.
Can I just jump in on that? I know just a couple of key things in here. So one is there's a study published, a peer-reviewed study published recently showing that people who used AI to do the thinking, the create from scratch, started cognitive decline, quite marked cognitive decline. And there's a couple of podcasts out there by neuroscientists talking about the fact that the impact could be massive over time. So I think that, I can't be bothered starting the writing. I'll just get AI to do it. I think, Steve, you're exactly right. You start doing that and it's a slippery slope. A, it all starts to look like the same AI slop, but B, you start to lose the ability to do the thing that you're asking the machine to do. That's a bad place to be. I think sorting signal from noise is a critical human skill. And the last thing I want to touch on was podcast. There is no better medium. That whole thing of, I live in Tauranga, I work in Auckland, I drive back and forth each week. I listen to hours of podcasts. And it all goes into your brain, and your brain sorts it all out and joins all the dots up in the background. And it's amazing how much you learn just by osmotic absorption of interesting information from smart people. And I think that's critical. And that's that constant learning. You don't have to do courses necessarily. It's not about, but it's that constant thing of putting new stuff into your brain and letting your brain sort its way through it in the way that your wonderfully unique, one of only 8 billion brains does. I think that's a key, absolutely critical thing.
Oh, that's amazing. There's so many valuable points in there. I do want to open the floor to any questions that you may have. So if you do have any questions, you can pop it in the chat, or you can even unmute and ask a question if you're brave enough to do that. But feel free, we'd love to hear from you. And while you're thinking through your questions, if you have any, I'm just going to do a quick summary and just say, Steve and Brett, it's been epic hearing your views. There's been so many critical messages we can take away today. There's just way too many. So I want to try and capture maybe a couple. I do love the whole idea of, don't talk about widgets, talk about value. I think that's so critical for anybody going into your new workplace, or even if you're in the workplace, because if you do understand your business and the value that you can provide to your customers, that's just next level innovation and problem solving that you can bring to it. So that was really cool, Steve. And Brett, you talked about half-life knowledge, which is probably now even less than that. And it's all about learning faster and access to the tools, like you said, podcasts or other avenues of learning, and not necessarily waiting for a learning program to upskill yourself, because there is so much knowledge available out there. So that's awesome. And ultimately, I guess the future of AI is not about better prompts. It is about better people. And people who are equipped, empowered, and ethically anchored. And that's the kind of stuff that we've been talking about. So for individuals investing in learning, even if it feels uncomfortable, that's where our growth begins for all of us, whether we are leaders in a business or an employee or looking to just find our next opportunity. And for leaders, I guess I loved your point, Steve, around investing in inclusive environments and culture within the organization, because that's where you really unlock this ROI. And it comes from that diversity of thought and not uniformity of background, right? We don't want more people like ourselves. And it goes to all of us, irrespective of the color of us and who we are, And yeah, so just looking at chat, it looks like you've given so much value. There's no more questions. There we go. Oh no, one's just popped in. Flanagan, okay, let's take this. When thinking about high school education, what knowledge and skills do you think are critical for this AI future? Great question. Thank you.
Man, I don't even remember what they teach at high school. So I was I was going to say dropout. I left early. School didn't work for me, or I didn't work for school. I don't know. At that age of being at high school, I just didn't have a great understanding of what was going on in the world. And I think if I had paid more attention to what was happening outside of my little microcosm of a life, I think I could have got a lot more out of my learning at high school. And therefore, later on, I probably could have solved problems a lot better because I was taking things with a wider context. I actually can't think of anything specific at high school that I would say you really must focus on this. Yeah, nothing more further from me.
Yeah, look, I kind of answered the same way. I did a presentation to a leadership program a few years ago, talking about the future of technology and a bunch of other things. And a woman came up to me afterwards and she was literally crying, which I felt terrible about. And she said, I've got two twin children at high school that are about to leave. What should they do? I'd kind of worried her about the future. And I said, teach them to communicate, teach them to take complex things and explain those things to people who don't understand those things. Help them find something that they're passionate about, that they want to delve right into, because one day they'll be in a job interview and someone will say, what do you care about? What are you passionate about? And Steve, there's nothing better when you're in an interview situation with someone and you give them the opportunity to talk about something they're passionate about, and you watch them light up, right? And you 100%. Just see it. You could put them in front of anything if because then that's the other thing. You get into business, it's like, am I really going to care about this industry I'm joining? I joined Air New Zealand, it's like the airplanes. And I found out I loved working on aircraft. I love the aviation industry, right? You throw people into it and that you bring that passion to it. So teach them to be passionate, help them be passionate, teach them how to learn about things. The communication thing is key. Teach them to build or help them learn how to build rapport. How do you form relationships with people? How do you form relationships where people feel they can trust and rely on you? None of that's necessarily to do with high school. You can start teaching kids that, from the age of 5. But I think, have them leave school with those skills and everything else will fall into place. I absolutely guarantee it. Because the minute they find that passionate thing, that thing they care about, they'll go and learn it. They'll jump and they'll listen to all the podcasts. They'll go and read all the books. They'll jump on the YouTube channels, right? It'll figure itself out. Just let them move around and find the thing that they care about. And when they do, kind of just let them go, right? I think, and again, it just keeps coming back to this thing. It's not about the technology. It's about humans. I'm firmly of the belief that the humanity is going to be even more important in a world where lots of jobs might be done by AI, right? The companies that are human and interact well with humans are going to be the ones that succeed in the long run. So humans will be the only competitive advantage because all the technology is just a commodity, right?
Yeah, and the enemy of what you're saying is this at high school. Everyone's like this.
Absolutely.
And, I send something to Brett and say, you've got glasses in a mean way, and that makes me feel good. But if I say it face to face and learn to communicate with them and see what the effect that has on them, you learn empathy, you learn. And I know it's very old manny of me to say, but these are great. I love it. I'm too much on it, I'm sure. But being able to, the people that can learn to look up from this and see what's going on around them and engage with people, you meet those people and you just know this person is someone who connects and gets it. And too easy to just jump on here the whole time and miss your life, and it bothers me,
And you actually raise just another point, I think, is people that have a bit of a world view, right? Look up from the device, see what's going on in the world, be able to talk about geopolitics, what's happening over here, have a view that's formed on reading some stuff, not just following what channel you happen to be in on Discord or something. That having a view, being willing to defend it, being willing to change your viewpoint. I think those things are critical. And it's those, they call them soft skills, but they're kind of hard. But those are the things that make for great humans. All the other learning stuff, there's a myriad of places you can do the learning part. But I think I'm a parent, I've got 3 kids. Get your kids, once they leave school, to be great human beings, and everything else will sort itself out, right? That really will.
Oh, what an amazing answer. Yeah, thank you. Yes, that makes complete sense. And we'll take one more question there. I'm learning Python by myself, Warren says, and I will also learn web tech later. Any advice to learn AI with my background and skills?
So yeah, you go,
no,
Brett.
Well, I was going to say, good luck with the Python stuff. I tried learning Python a while back. I've got a software development background from a million years ago, and it drove me insane, so I gave up. So, but good on you for wanting to learn that. I think that's really good, right? So persevere at that. I think the advice I'd give you is you clearly are interested in learning things. Find someone that is dependable to learn from. A particular couple of folks on YouTube, whatever it might be, and kind of stick with them, because it's very easy just to chop and change all the time. There's some great Python resources out there that really take you from 0 to hero. Find something around AI that's the same, that takes you on a learning journey, rather than kind of jumping into that looks interesting, that looks interesting, that looks interesting. Because it's sometimes hard to learn from that. But I mean, Python is just the universal language now, right? So that Python's built into Excel. So I think we will absolutely be in a world where we will be joining AI things up with Python. Maybe that's a thing to think about, right?
I'm just going to agree with Brett. I was going to say the same thing. That's good.
Still your words. Yep. And if you don't, that's great that people who are self-disciplined and who can do it themselves should absolutely do that. And if you're looking at a more structured environment, we do have different options available within Mission Ready as well to help you with that journey. The one thing I would probably add is be very clear about which career or which pathway you're choosing for yourself when you choose, because that once you know that you want to become a software developer or a designer or whatever direction you're going, that then helps you find the right tools, the right AI tools to support you on that journey. But amazing questions. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. A little over time, but I hope you all got some value out of this session. It's been amazing speaking to you, Stephen, Brett. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. It was fun. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Have a fantastic evening, everyone.
Good. Goodbye.